The biggest thing that would assist a security team is listening to those that feel that they're already duping the system. So where they're saying the vulnerabilities are that, they know that this door isn't monitored like something else. They know staffing levels are low at certain times of the day. They know certain products aren't being watched as much as others. So they're telling people how to do that. So if a security team can be listening, and on top of that, they know where to put their cameras, they know where to put their access controls, and they can all work together.
Like a free security consultation from your adversaries.
Exactly.
Welcome back to another edition of the LifeRaft Security Conversations Series. I'm your host, Robert Ballew. And today I'm joined by our company intelligence solution executive, Katherine Neil. Our topic today explores how retail loss professionals can use OSINT to reduce theft at their stores, as well as practical tips on how you can do that yourself. But first, a little bit about Kath. She advises businesses on how to use open web sources to safeguard their operations. She's also a member of the International Supply Chain Protection Organization. I think I got that whole name right. A nonprofit association for security professionals in retail and other industries. Kath, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
When was the real moment when you realized of what OSINT was and how powerful this could be for security professionals?
Yeah, actually, it goes back quite a long ways. My initial introduction into OSINT, or open source intelligence and social media monitoring, was way back in the early days through a marketing company. I worked with a number of different organizations for brand management, brand protection. The aha moment came when we talked with a lot of security professionals, that needed to get more granular, that it was all well and great to hear about the big brand, but they needed to know about their store. They needed to know what was going on with their employees and their organization specifically in their district or region, not just an overall name. So that was way back in way back now, it says 2011. And then LifeRaft was born, and it just was a passion of mine to be able to work with those security professionals in order to provide that service.
What's kind of surprised you the most about this field?
What surprises me the most every single day is just what you think is not online is online. I remember the first time I typed in very silly things like, who's going to say they're, drunk at work? Or who's going to tell people how to fake a slip and fall? Who's going to, admit to these things in an open forum for anyone to see? And just when you think there's no way they're doing that, there's posts, there's different channels, there's different places for you to look that people are talking about all these things and have an audience. So that's always surprised me, even though I've been in this industry for quite some time.
I think what's I found really cool is just you'll see a picture posted online, and then with Google Maps or some other software, like people can pinpoint exactly where that was based on the smallest pieces of data. It's crazy. So for our listener who's just coming in for the first time, not quite familiar with OSINT, give me the OSINT 101. What is it exactly?
OSINT 101. So in our terms, OSINT is online open source intelligence. So that would be anything that is easily accessible, freely accessible. Usually people call it social media, but it also includes some things that are a bit more difficult to find around blogs and boards, your Reddits, your Tumblrs, different things like that to allow you to dig in online and see what's being said out there.
So can you give me like an example of how this might be used?
For sure. And social media could be used in a number of different ways for retail. So you could have people sharing tips, talking about different stores, areas they're going to. One example was people posting about something called glitching. So back in the day, it was a coupon that went rogue. So if a store put up an online sale that something was supposed to be $100 and it was glitched to $1 within the computer system, people posting and saying, get online really quickly, how to engage employees to assist you in a larger organized retail crime situation.
So kind of the scouts in your security department.
Yes, very much so. Just out there listening for what's going on.
When people are thinking about more like loss prevention, it's the bolts on the door, the security cameras. What's kind of the 101 pitch for why OSINT should take a bigger role in a company's loss prevention strategy?
That's a great question. And I've also worked in the nuts and bolts industry with loss prevention. So I have been in the world of cameras and access controls, and they are a much needed resource. What I have found looking online in some forums and some different boards are people are posting how-tos, whether somebody has a camera, whether their cameras are being monitored, where the cameras are, so people know if they're doing in-store thefts, where to sit and hide, how to take things apart. The biggest thing that would assist a security team is listening to those that feel that they're already duping the system. So where they're saying the vulnerabilities are, that, they know that this door isn't monitored like something else. They know staffing levels are low at certain times of the day. They know certain products aren't being watched as much as others. So they're telling people how to do that. So if a security team can be listening, and on top of that, they know where to put their cameras, they know where to put their access controls, and they can all work together.
Like a free security consultation from your adversaries.
Exactly.
Do you have any interesting examples specifically of these kind of guides that you've seen?
Oh, for sure. As I said, right now, rattle.me, not as many people are on that. As we all know, social and online shift quite a bit, which is something very difficult for people to keep on top of as well. So rattle.me has a lot of how-tos. It has actually a shoplifting wiki that will go through store by store saying what the vulnerabilities are, what the strengths are, what's the best things to take, what's not the best things to take when you're looking at things just coming out of store. There's another forum called Quora that is really more for I want to say like teenagers. They're bragging. They're showing what they're taking. They're adding up the totals. They're saying what stores they've been to. Again, you're not necessarily going to get these things back, but you're going to get an idea of what the new hot topic is to take, whether it's a new CD, which probably aren't anymore. I'm aging myself there, but a new CD, or if it's, clothing, or if it's different. Actually, they steal snacks. So you can tell it's kind of teens. So you can kind of see where that group is coming, right up to your classifieds and a little bit deeper. So people who are actually engaging in a more organized retail crime situation where they're looking for people to assist them, where they're then selling those goods online in the different classified areas, where they're using Instagram or some of these forums in a different language that can then help people put things together.
Now, I understand like in this business, there's all kinds of NDAs and things we can't talk about, but what results can you hint to that tailors have had after adopting these types of programs?
For sure. We definitely can't talk about different clients. That's just not something we do here. I have had clients tell me that they've learned online and then can put into practice. If you're a larger, I'm trying not to do it so I give anything away. Let's do a larger retailer and toilets are on sale. I don't know why I picked that one, but we'll pick toilets today. Toilets are on sale. They're a very large box. They're usually not a huge expensive item, maybe $100, maybe $200. They're heavy. Somebody's going to pick it up, put it on a cart, and nobody's going to touch it again when you go through the checkout. What they're doing is taking those pieces out of the box, putting in other higher priced items that are heavy, whether that be tools or different machinery or maybe DVD players, whatever's the big thing going, putting it in the box, resealing it in a corner somewhere that they know is a fairly quiet corner. They're checking out. They're checking out for the $100 and $200, but meanwhile, they might have $5,000 worth of merchandise within. So being able to uncover or hear the tip and trick, that's something that we're doing. For larger companies who get PO numbers, so you get an order online for something. We've had some experience where the PO has some interesting language on it, right? So you send out the item, you send out the pallet of whatever that is, what vacuum cleaners, refrigerators. You've sent that off. It has an address that looks really above board. All of a sudden, you're not getting paid. You realize the company is a false company. We've been able to go online at times, or you can go online and look up similar language. You can see other companies that might have been duped in the same way. So you can work together to either find who this person was, because maybe they've given a bit of different information, or to prevent it from happening again.
Gotcha. One thing that's come up a lot in our conversations offline has been a lot of the situational awareness. So if you're running a retail outlet, these aren't just stores anymore. They are also places where people kind of hang out. A lot of stores are offering more of these entertainment type options to keep people in, a differentiator from Amazon. But that obviously creates issues for more challenges for security professionals and trying to maintain that situational awareness. So how can OSINT be used in that case?
Situational awareness is really important. So being able to know as people, carry around their phones when something is happening and being able to tell whether or not it's an urgent case or not. We've heard about shopping centers, of course, having terrible shooting incidences, finding out where people are, where people might be hiding, where they've heard things very quickly and being able to go to that area. Even have some up front. If they know that something's going to come up and there's going to be a lot of people present, maybe for an influencer that's visiting or a celebrity that might be coming to the store, it's not all negative. It's having the proper security there to prepare for the event. So back in the days of the huge lineups on Thanksgiving, it's knowing, do you have a sale that's big enough to bring in extra security, or really it's just going to be a normal day?
I like that point there where it's not always negative. It's just knowing what's going on, like with the celebrity or a parade's going by or something like that. And you want to be aware of that. Or I could also think of just in general, like a fire breaks out nearby or there's a disaster or something like that.
Yeah, being able to check in quickly. I mean, I think we've all been in cases, again, this is something that's not negative. And I like your parade aspect. If a parade is going by and there's a coffee shop, and you're going to have, usually it's a very quiet Tuesday evening and something's going by and you're realizing, I might want to have extra staff on because, we're going to have triple the number of people running in for either a cool drink or for a coffee because there's just more people in the area. Just knowing that, being aware.
And that can help out, I would imagine, too, not like staffing, but also brand protection, knowing what's being said about yourself online or your company or your executives along those lines, too.
Definitely. It's very high importance for that, just to kind of keep a finger. Sometimes that runs to different parts of the organization, but usually security needs to at least be aware of it, especially if they're expecting somebody at their doorstep who's not happy.
Right. Now, that's a really interesting rundown on like the 101 and why it's relevant. So I guess I want to transition now into the how. Like I could see myself in one or two positions. Like I'm the analyst in the security room, trying to learn how to do this stuff. But I could also see myself as the manager, justifying this to executives in the company, this kind of investment. So I kind of want to go down those two tracks with some practical takeaways for a listener. First thing when I started getting into OSINT was realizing, wow, the internet's a really big place. I can't keep my eyes on everything everywhere. And what's relevant for one use case, it might not be relevant to retailers. Where do you advise loss prevention professionals to start looking online for the most relevant threats or the best situational intelligence? You kind of hinted at a really interesting one with rattle.me, but like where do you kind of get started with?
So, I mean, you can have some of those surface levels, really sharing coupons or sharing some ideas of younger people, really getting to something we call the deep web. So this is the part of the web that is still open, but hard to find, hard to be indexed. It might be indexed by Google or Bing, but, it's on page 540 and nobody's going there. So being able to look at these boards, Tumblr is another one that has a lot of information. Quora, rattle.me, as I said, rattle.me has the full how-to guide right down to your store. It is a lot to take on at the beginning. I'm not, if you're doing something manually, chances are you're only touching the surface in those, main areas that you hear about or local classified ads for the local area. You're not looking at your whole district. So being able to automate that to all the keywords, be able to make changes quickly if a pallet has gone missing, or as I said, you're monitoring Tumblr or Rattle or Quora, and all of a sudden you realize a new product is the new hot topic. Right. So you might want to be able to get ahead of that, or finding out that just the how-tos, how people are actually doing it. Some of these even have staff members telling you how to do it. So there's some disgruntled employees who have left, or even loss prevention managers who have gone on and say, we either have really strong security, which is always amazing. They're trying to be positive. They're trying to say, guys, don't shoplift from us. We have cameras. We have this. We have that. All they're doing is giving them more information to figure out how to work around this.
Right. I found rattle.me when I came across that for the first time, and just seeing the step-by-step guide. Here's where the cameras are placed. Here's how much they invest in loss prevention staffing. Here's their policies. Will they pursue you? Are they going to be confrontational? How to deal with the tags, the type of tags that you need to have. It is mind-boggling what was available on that site. Just publicly do a little Googling and there it is.
Oh, exactly. And that kind of goes back to my first thing about what always surprises me. You'd think this would be something that would be under lock and key with only, certain people allowed in through a passcode or something like that. But it's all out there. It's just where to find it. So as a loss prevention, whether you're a manager or an analyst, it's where to find it and how much time it takes. So if you're trying to, ROI is huge in loss prevention, supply chain management. We get that. It's how much you can prevent. Of course, it's how much you can recoup too for those larger hauls, they call them, that might go out the door, and being able to recoup those. But it's also just knowing where to put your best manpower, knowing where to put that extra camera, knowing whether or not you should invest in access controls or not. Some of the big areas coming up right now, of course, as we change and continue to change with COVID, people wearing masks. They feel a little more sense of anonymity like they do online. A lot of places, and I speak for Canada as well, a lot of places are using reusable shopping bags. So you're bringing in your own shopping bags. There's a lot of how-tos on how to just fill your shopping bag and walk confidently out the door. And there's a lot of tips and tricks on how to trick the self-checkout. So stores are thinking they're saving money and saving huge productivity by not having cashiers as much, but there's a million tips and tricks on how to trick that self-checkout, whether there's a camera there or not. So the camera is watching your face, but they've learned how to trick the self-checkout that, yes, it's on there, it goes in the bagging area, everything's like copacetic, and then meanwhile, they're walking it with some pretty high-end items for the price of potatoes. And again, they're telling you where to look. And again, as you say, some of the details on this is pretty astronomical. So where people can put cameras, from my life in cameras, you can be very unique in where you put your cameras. You just have to know where to place them.
Is there anything in terms of the distinction, because they're the big websites, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, and things like that? Are those kind of threats on there, or is this more the alternative spaces?
They're everywhere. I'd love to say they're not. There was a big takedown, and this is in the news in the US. FBI took down a diamond ring. So people who were doing smash and grabs in jewelry stores using Instagram because of things that they were saying on Instagram that they could tie together. So those things are definitely being used. Facebook has a lot of privacy legislation, but Facebook Marketplace. So usually for the individuals or the smaller ORC rings, they're using Facebook Marketplace. They're using the Kijijis, the Craigslist, the local classified ads. But then there's the eBays and the ones that might be a little bit more password protective, the Telegrams, the Reddits. And manually, you just can't keep up with it. It changes just so quickly. We've been providing something called the Tech Insight Trust, just trying to keep our clients on top of where people tend to be moving to, kind of like a flock of seagulls moving around. So it's where they're being followed to. Well,
it's every time the big websites really crack down on a problematic activity, something else pops up, they shut it down, it moves over to a different site. It's a whack-a-mole.
It is definitely whack-a-mole. So rattle.me came from Reddit. Reddit cracked rattle.me down. That's where they've gone. There's a lot of how-tos, but it's been quiet for the last couple of months. So, we're on the search of where did those people go, because I can tell you they're not being quiet.
Right. And the other thing, and you mentioned this at the very beginning of our chat, I was just remembering it, was like the insider threats. And some of these employees that you might have, they might be nefarious, but some of them just aren't. You're posting your work badge, and social engineers can use that to get into secured places. How can the just average Joe retail employee, maybe who's not up to anything bad, what kind of things can they give away that can compromise a company's security?
You'd be surprised. And I mean, it's usually the people who love their jobs or who think they're being funny that can cause some pretty huge security gaps. There's some companies where, again, we're dealing with teenagers. I'm so glad social media wasn't around when I was a teenager, who are posting when they're hiding in the bathroom because they don't want to get called up front. Now you think that would be more of a employee slap on the wrist, you have to go out. But that's actually a security issue as well. If there's, a large number of people and there's only one person out front, that allows a lot of loss prevention or potential shoplifting to go out the door. They just don't think about that. The posting of your badge or saying, this is a big one, I just got a job at. So you just got a job at your favorite place and you're so excited and, hit me up for my discount. Hey, my friends, hit me up for my discount. Let me know what you want. I get 50% off. Again, that's not necessarily something nefarious, just so I can throw that word in. It's nothing nefarious, but it's something you'd want to then coach your staff on, right? That you're excited. I get it. You get 50% off. Even if you're not saying hit me up for my discount, some of your friends are going to come out saying you get 50% off the latest new sneakers or whatever. Well, here, buddy, pick them up for me, like order them online for me. Let's figure out how to do this. It just leaves you in a really awkward situation.
For listeners, nefarious is our favorite word at LifeRaft. Everyone chuckles when it comes up. Shout out to one individual in particular.
It was brought in from overseas, so we just love it.
In terms of, the other thing I've run into when I've been carrying out my kind of beginner 101 OSINT investigations was running into the issue of what kind of keywords exactly. A lot of these investigations and monitoring, it's a lot of keyword based. So the first thing I'm wondering is like, what kind of keywords do I look for? Where do I even get started with that?
Yeah, that's not always easy. There's sometimes local slang that you just know of because you're in that area. Some people are very broad. Right now, a lot of the hashtags I was looking at are actually hashtag shoplifting, hashtag haul today, or the store's name in a haul or a lift. Kind of have to start broadly. And I know here at LifeRaft, we provide a lot of assistance, but whatever you're working with, you have to start pretty broadly and then narrow that down going, okay, you know what? Kids stealing Skittles is not necessarily our issue. We really want to just talk with people who are doing things a little bit more high end and looking for that information. New in box, if you're looking in classifieds and trying to figure out and narrow things down, being able to then monitor those people who you think might be doing something, but you just want to know. You don't want to necessarily know every time they're posting about their breakfast, but if they're talking about your company, you want to know about that. Being able just to take looks and see how they're talking, see how their language is, and see who else might be talking the same way, usually. So it's not an instant fix, but it comes around pretty quickly.
I was kind of amused by some of the keywords I found when I was researching for this conversation. And one was on TikTok. There's the borrowing community, which I found was just an interesting word. But a lot of this process is studying your threat actors and learning the type of lingo that they are. It's not something you can necessarily automate specifically. You kind of have to go and find those keywords on your own and do that kind of research.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll find some pretty broad things, like as you said, the borrowing community, the shoplifting community. Couponing has lichting, and they have some like glittering and some words like that. And then you work backwards. You kind of say, so what else are people in this community talking about that might be a little different? Not everyone's going to come out and say, I shoplifted today, or I got a markdown breakdown, and now I'm going to take that and resell it. It's just kind of learning what that lingo is and going backwards. Or even better, being able to figure out who that person is who's taken a pallet of items that were listed as either shrinkage or damage, taking that on themselves and reselling it and figuring it out that way. I know there's a certain case in the US right now. There's a woman who's done like over 40 lots. I won't quote the actual number because I can't think of it right off the top of my head, in couponing. So couponing fraud is huge. Even for organized retail crime, there are people who hire people to help them create receipt fraud. Distraction and receipt fraud and things like that. It's pretty eye-opening, but it's definitely more than like a manual or a one-person team can do.
That's an interesting point you go up. I was going to go somewhere else, but then you mentioned receipt fraud. I wanted to jump into that. Why don't tell me what that is exactly?
Sure. Receipt fraud is when someone purchases an item totally above board, then either themselves or someone else takes that receipt back, picks up the item in another part of the store and returns it. So basically you can sell that pair of jeans, and you've gotten your money back for that pair of jeans at the same time without blatantly in your face walking out with an item that you have to worry about getting caught for. Sometimes they hire people to take the receipt back, so it's not the same faces all the time, where they can say, okay, Rob and Kath, you do this all the time, right? So they're looking for different people to assist them.
If I show up 10 times on the return line in a week, that's going to cause some issues.
Yeah, that's Costco sometimes. So I'm gonna laugh, but thank goodness Costco has such a strong receipt return because it's on and that's the only reason I joke about that, because it's on your account.
If right? Costco LP is listening to this podcast, she's not doing receipt fraud. That's just Kath.
That's just me returning items, usually for my mother, actually.
So people are actually, you can find these ads online looking for, are there sites where this is common, or it's all over?
It's all over. Sometimes it's classified. Sometimes it's just even, and I mean, this is sad to say, people who are out panhandling get hired to do this and said, hey, you know what? If you return this pair of jeans, we'll say, and it's $100, we'll give you 20 of it. They're still walking away with $80 in a pair of jeans they can resell. So they're thinking outside the box that way for receipt fraud. And again, it's sad that way.
What are the common mistakes that you often see with these type of OSINT investigations when they're applied to loss prevention?
Common mistakes. Well, you can be too broad or too narrow. I mean, you want to be able to find just the right amount of what we call noise. So you're not bringing in every single mention of Skittles and stolen. You want to be able to put different layers of words in there to make sure that it is, again, granular and relevant to what you're looking for. So that would be a very common mistake. And just working with people that way to learn, from each other, having a community around you, whether it's within an organization, working with loss prevention organizations out there to hear what's working for them. The big thing, too, is not to just dive in. Go do your research on what they're already saying, what current shoplifters or organized retail crime people online are saying, and then build your information around that.
I loved your analogy, and I have stolen it for my own pieces where you have to figure out exactly where people are looking. Can you say that analogy again? Because I love this one. This was my favorite.
I always say that it's like coffee shops. So everybody's in a coffee shop talking. And if you're only standing in, most of our clients are American, so I won't say the Tim Hortons up here in Canada, but let's say if you're always standing in Starbucks and you don't know what's going on in Robin's or Dunkin' Donuts, you're going to be missing a lot of the conversation. So being able just to put a broader net out there and listen anywhere that you can is always better than standing there thinking you're catching the whole picture by just standing in the Starbucks.
I'm always looking for interesting analogies for my posts. I blatantly steal it now. It's in my own list of cliches for myself. But I'm thinking now, just changing the conversation to a bit higher up. So more the manager who's maybe working closer to the C-suite. What are the common hurdles that maybe a company might face when trying to adopt a threat intelligence program?
Definitely. The most common, the two most common is budget and return on investment. So again, when you're trying to prevent something, it's hard to put a dollar value on that until it's gone by and you can see how your shrinkage has done or how you've compared to years gone by. Budgets are always tight with security, and we're very well aware of that. So being able to show how this isn't just going to help with the online potential of finding stolen goods or seeing what people are stealing, but those how-tos are going to help you in every area. So they're going to help you as, again, where to put your cameras, where to put your people. So sometimes you don't know what's working or what's not working. You put a whole lot of cameras up, maybe they're at the wrong angle and people are saying, hey, yeah, all the cameras are up, but if you wear a hat, nobody will see your face, right? So being able to then make real life decisions of, let's move those cameras down. Let's put them in these places that they're talking about. Let's put an access control on this employee door that we've never had to do before, because people are now talking that, hey, if you sneak in and out of this employee door or this washroom or wherever, there's not enough staff on at certain times of the day when it's quiet. I read a story before we did this online, somebody talking about lobby stores, so stores that have like lobbies in them. And when it's quiet, they've actually had people walk out with the lobby furniture, right? Because there's nobody there. There's only one or two staff members on. And if you look like you're supposed to be there and supposed to be moving the furniture around and you walk up the door, nobody's going to question you. Whereas maybe with a few more people on, that would be a little more difficult to do.
I'm just thinking of the How I Met Your Mother episode where Marshall just helped the burglars take the furniture straight out of the store just because he's so nice. And it's like, hey, situational awareness here. Like, that's not supposed to happen at 2 a.m.
It also helps managers. I mean, again, this isn't all negative. It helps managers just learn the ebbs and flows of their organization, being able to monitor weather, being able to monitor events going on in the area. If there's a concert coming, as you said, if there's a parade going by, if there's a hurricane coming or, things like that, being able to better prepare your stores and what people in the area are saying. And are you about to run out of water? Or back when COVID hit, are you about to run out of toilet paper? Is that going to be the thing? No one was prepared for toilet paper to be the thing, right? But maybe if we had listened online a bit more and went, toilet paper, who knew? Okay, let's order extras in, or let's talk to our supply chain about getting more of this in. There might not have been as much of a shortage, so that's still one we're all scratching our heads about.
You're not caught flat-footed when everything goes haywire.
Exactly. Not as. I mean, there are still things that will happen for sure, but you just have a better ear on your public, on your customers, on the people who might be trying to defraud you, and on your employees, just to have a better sense of your business. You can make better business decisions all around, not just in your security level.
One of my interesting examples for situational awareness with these emergency type situations was COVID. You'd be watching the mainstream media where politicians might be saying, hey, this is no big deal. It's just a small thing and no one really knows what's going on. But you'd go to Reddit nurses or Reddit nurses in New York or something, and they'd be talking about the flood of people that are showing up sick at the hospital. And you kind of start thinking, oh, wait, this is a bigger deal than what I'm seeing that 1 week ahead of time sometimes when you're conducting these investigations properly.
Yeah, the people who caught on, when we talk about COVID, a lot of us were caught off guard middle of March, beginning of March, with just a huge we're closed and not knowing what that meant. The people who were paying attention maybe a week before and kind of saw a little bit more of the writing on the wall were already out there and getting prepared. They were already out there buying their toilet paper and that, and just kind of saying, I'm not sure what this is going to look like, but we're going to go out now because we didn't know what stores were going to be closed. We didn't know if gas stations were going to be closed. We didn't know. So instead of that huge rush, some people were listening beforehand, and you could have caught, especially if you worked in grocery retail and things like that, you could have caught on that people were starting to panic buy a little sooner than when everything finally closed down.
If you're the security manager, a chief security officer at a company, is there a good person to reach out to first in the C-suite that might help get more backing for this program?
It changes. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, each organization is so unique. Some people have a national, global, district sales team that they're working with. Some, it's very individual to the region. Eventually, it all rolls up to wherever a head office is. It doesn't matter if you're small or you're large, it's family owned or not. It really depends if it's your security team or if you have an operational division that's going to roll up to. As I said, being able to listen to what your customers and your clients are saying is really important for an overall business sense, not just a security and loss prevention sense.
What are your favorite resources for learning about OSINT, or someone who's just interested in learning more about this topic and getting their feet wet?
We have a few resources on, of course, our webpage at LifeRafting.com. I really appreciate being a member of the ISCPO, or the International Supply Chain Group, and I'm sure we can introduce you into them. They have a great group of people that are willing to talk. I love Loss Prevention Magazine as well. It's amazing resource to hear what's coming up, what people are already saying. They host webinars. They really keep people informed. So there's lots of ways to know a little bit about it. It still seems very overwhelming. So just never hesitate to reach out to anybody and ask them a question. They'll be happy to walk you through it.
It's a very friendly community. And
it is
people
a
are happy
very
to help.
friendly community. Right.
I appreciate that you taking the time, Kath, to speak with me today. What is the main takeaway that you want our listener to remember from our conversation?
It's just to begin. Everyone feels it's a little deeper than what we know. We see it all out there. It's kind of like looking at the traffic jam from only 5 cars away. You don't really know what's going on up ahead. So being able to keep your eyes open, your ears open. And as I said, it's not just about your security team. It's your overall business wellness and business optimization that your security can assist with that way.
Solid advice, Kath. If listeners want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
They can either pop on our website and request a demo. They can visit me on LinkedIn. So Katherine Neil, I'm on LinkedIn, or you can email me at Katherine@liferaftinc.com.
Appreciate that. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Rob. You have a great day.
Again, that was Katherine Neil, our Senior Intelligence Solution Executive here at LifeRaft. Thanks for listening to another edition of the LifeRaft Security Conversation Series. If you'd like more tips on how to use threat intelligence to safeguard your organization, as Kath mentioned, be sure to check out our blog at liferaftinc.com/resources. That's liferaftinc.com/resources. Hope you found that useful, and I hope you join me again in our next conversation real soon.